What's up guys, I'm Nate Navarro and today I have something really cool to show you. It's called the ULTRAWAVE Multiband Bass Processor, and it's the first pedal ever where all of the sounds that come with it out of the box were made by me. Over the last year I've been deep in development with the tremendously talented guys at Source Audio. We wanted to create something different, something fresh, and this is what we came up with. A modular sandbox of creative and useful tools that cover everything from super flexible compression and expansion, splitting your bass signal into up to 10 frequency bands and processing each of them individually into classic, modern, synthy, and experimental distortions, multi-band tremolo, morphing and LFO controls, ring mod, EQ, and more. Here's a quick sample of the sounds that you'll get right out of the box. There's a whole lot packed into this pedal, and if you're into sound design, this thing is a playground. Take a deep dive into the Neuro Desktop Editor or Neuro Mobile app to bring to fruition the sounds you hear in your head, or turn knobs at random until you stumble upon something interesting. If creating sounds from scratch isn't so much your thing, you can quickly and easily browse tons of additional presets from other users and save them to your own library, or put them right on the pedal. We have 6 easy access presets to work with, 128 through MIDI, and you can keep an unlimited number of presets in the cloud. Here are a few examples of presets I found from other users. As I mentioned earlier, the ULTRAWAVE has an extremely flexible compressor and expander. They offer precise control with very helpful visual feedback. This allows you to dial in your settings faster, and if you're less experienced with compression or expansion, it'll give you an idea of what each control is doing in real time. For example, here's a quick bass loop. We have the mode set to compressor, which smooths out the dynamic range of the bass, as opposed to an expander, which would widen the dynamic range. Maybe you're switching between techniques like fingerstyle and tapping, or slapping and using a pick, and you notice that some of the passages are too loud, or more often they're too quiet, and being lost in the mix. Adding compression can gently guide the dynamic range of your bass to be heard more consistently in a transparent fashion, or you can push it more aggressively, squashing your bass's dynamic range in a less transparent, more stylistic kind of way. It's also perfect for adding sustain to your notes. Here's a quick look at my approach to compression using the ULTRAWAVE. Let's keep the mix at maximum so that we hear only the signal running through the compressor. In many cases, it's nice to blend in some of your unaffected signal, but I'd suggest doing that last. This way you can more clearly hear what your compressor's doing while you're dialing it in. Next, let's put output gain at minimum while we adjust input gain. The input gain is dependent upon your instrument's output level. When you're playing your loudest, the ball should reach about halfway into the last column of the graph, so anywhere along this vertical line that I'm drawing right now. That looks about right. Next, increase output gain so that the volume is just a little bit louder than when the pedal is bypassed, like this. Yeah. We'll need to keep adjusting the output gain as we make changes to the other controls. Threshold controls the amplitude at which compression is applied. If you only want your very loudest sounds to be brought down in volume, keep the threshold high. If you'd like to compress sounds that are moderately loud and above, bring the threshold down some. And if you want to compress just about everything, set it near minimum. Ratio controls the degree of gain reduction once your threshold is met. Do you want those louder notes to be slightly quieter? Or about the same level as everything else? And a related control, the knee width, which determines the onset of the compression. If you'd like the full compression ratio to be applied as soon as the threshold is reached, set the knee width to off. If you'd like the full ratio to be applied gradually, choose any of the other options, with 15 dB being the softest, or most transparent. Set the attack high if you want an immediate response from the compressor. With a slow attack, your starting notes can have a bit more impact, with sharper transients before the compressor reacts and starts pulling them down. I usually like the feel of a faster attack. Release controls the speed at which the compressor lets go. So watch this. With release set to minimum, it's going to keep holding on for a while. The level of compression won't waver all that much, for a smoother sound. A faster release brings back more dynamic variety. It just comes down to the particular sound or feel that you're going for. If you want to take things even further, you can create a dual compressor, which allows you to compress two frequency bands separately. This is a great way to have more dynamic mids and highs while keeping a tight and constant deepness to your bass's tone. If this interests you, check out my True Dual Comp preset in the Neuro app. Oh, and before I forget, this location parameter sets whether the compressor is placed before or after the distortion module in the signal chain. Tons of options here. Now let's take a quick look at the distortion controls. Here we have a list of 45 distortion types to choose from. As I mentioned, everything from classic, modern, synthy, and experimental. Let's go with the synthy Fold 1 in honor of the OG multi-wave bass distortion. And here's a riff to go with it. Here we have the multiband drive controls and the multiband level controls. Currently the band splitting option is set to one band, no splitting in other words. One of my favorite features of this pedal is that it can split the instrument signal into up to 10 bands in a variety of ways, and you can then control the drive and level of each of those bands individually. Check this out. Band splitting, 10 bands, 13 NN bass 2. This is one of the band splitting options I made specifically for bass, and listen to how the sound changes once I select it. You can see the frequency range of each of the 10 bands here, and now let's play around with their drive and levels. I can completely isolate any band by deselecting the others. So for example, right now I'm listening to only 350 to 575 Hertz and controlling the drive of that band only. I like how this frequency band sounds, so let's add in others to thicken it up. I'll usually use less drive on the lower frequency bands, but for synthy distortions like this one, you'll often get some interesting envelope characteristics by driving them harder. I also find that sometimes it's best to exclude 2, 3, or even more bands for a better sound. You don't have to use them just because they're there, and listening to the sound in the context of a mix can help you find which bands aren't helping your cause. Once you've found a setting you like, you can save it and maybe even come back and tweak it some more. Just like a written document, it's nice to have frequent save points just in case you want to get back to a previous point. We've briefly touched on 2 of the ULTRAWAVE modules, and you can see there's still a ton more to explore. I've left a link in the description to an official source audio video that covers the editor more in depth. Things like morphing between distortions, multiband tremolo, LFO waveform shaping, and more. Thank you so much for watching my tip of the iceberg demo for the ULTRAWAVE Multiband bass processor. You can find out more at sourceaudio.net. I'm Nate Navarro. Take care.